Wow. Hey guys, welcome to my quick review of this new Between Friends album called Wow. It came out a little over a week ago now, and it is this electro indie pop glamorous album co-written and co-produced by siblings Brandon and Savannah Hudson. Um, it's had a bit of a production help from various different producers as well, including Eden, who is actually releasing a new album soon, which I will review. This album I'm actually pleasantly surprised by. Uh, I think it sounds great. It's quirky, it's well produced, it sort of gives like 2000s electro pop vibes. It's very nostalgic. To me, I think it's about being youthful and falling in love and just enjoying the quirkiness in life. I honestly do think this is their best work since We Just Need Some Time Together, their first EP, which is actually what helped me fall in love with Between Friends. It featured indie rock, very well produced, like sort of had grungy guitars, really fun production. But I feel like ever since then, I was sort of unsure of the direction they were taking with their new music. It was sort of, trying to become hyper pop, very indie, very light-hearted, sort of DJ production. You can tell they're having fun on the tracks that they've released, especially on their first album as well, that came out a couple years ago. But I didn't love it because it didn't have that charm and sharp production value. But this new album pleasantly surprised me because I think it's very well produced, and from start to finish, even from the beginning track, You and Me Time, I think that track's fantastic. It builds itself up really well. It's a great opener to the album. From start to finish, it builds the vocals up, and it sort of brings in Brandon's vocals near the end as well. I think their vocals go really well together on these slightly more electro pop songs rather than the indie rock songs that they were releasing before. I do think You and Me Time is one of my favorite tracks on this album because of its production. You can tell that the two siblings are having fun singing and DJing and producing this album. I think the writing is actually quite solid on this album, and that's why I think it's their best work since their first EP, which was over 5 or 6 years ago now, so quite a long time. But the second album I think is very solid. Even tracks like American Bitch, that was actually the lead single, which it surprised me a little bit because it felt slightly more mellow. I think it sounds better within the album, but as a lead single, I wasn't too sure on it. However, tracks like DJ and XD, I think those were fantastic singles. I think they're short, sharp, very fun, very boppy, gets you dancing a little bit. I do think this slightly more electro pop sound works really well for them, with a mixture of a little bit of rock and slightly more synth vibes throughout. I think in terms of their production value, I think this works really well for them. And some of my favorite tracks towards the end of the album, which I haven't spoken about yet, but Jam, wow, that song is so catchy. It really surprised me when I first heard it. I think my jaw actually started dropping slightly just because I was having so much fun listening to it with my headphones on. But it builds itself up really well all the way towards the end and that last beat drop. It just keeps going, and I think Savannah's vocals are really nice on that song as well. It feels a bit repetitive, but it doesn't at the same time, if that makes sense. I think it holds itself up really well. And then another great track, which is actually the closer for this album, Jackie, I think is fantastic. That song also really surprised me. It's probably one of their nicest songs that they've written so far, I think. It features both of their vocals on the same song. Beautiful vocals mixed with some keys, like piano keys, towards the end of the song, which really helps pick up the song towards the end, all the way to the end of the album. I think that song is so much fun. I think it's a beautiful track, a great way to finish the album. My favorite parts on this album are probably the synths that kick in Jam towards the end, along with those drum beats. I think you can hear Brandon in the background as well towards that last beat drop. I think that's really fun. It really gets you hyped up. And also in Jackie, the Jackie What You Waiting For, those lyrics are, really nice and lighthearted, but also the vocals are beautiful, and I think they carry the track really well. So I do think there's some slightly messy parts in this album, songs that don't really captivate you as much, and I don't think they have as much substance to them. For example, Comfortable and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're probably my least favorite tracks on this album. I don't think they have much going on to them. I know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 was a single, but I didn't love that one. They're still fun tracks, and they work for the album, I think, but I just don't think they captivate you as much, and they're not as engaging. I don't really see myself coming back to those as much. But I do think my three standout tracks on this album are easily You and Me Time, Jam, and Jackie. I think those are some of their strongest songs to date. I think they're really well produced, really catchy, really fun. I do think the production help from various different producers has helped here. And it's brought together this album which actually works for them. I think I think they work really well in this genre, this electro, nostalgia-filled genre. I think they were just missing that spark, which is what this album actually has compared to some of their older EPs, mixtapes, and their first album, for example. But yeah, I think I'm definitely feeling a strong 8 on this album. I really had fun listening to it, and I find myself coming back to various songs on this record a lot more than their older material, for example. Like I said, you can tell they've had fun making this album. I was pleasantly surprised by these tracks. So for that reason, it is a solid 8 out of 10 for me. But let me know what you thought in the comments below, and let me know if you have any suggestions on what I should review next. Thanks for watching, guys, and see you in the next video.